one of the things too that just so deeply spoke to my heart when I was researching Islam was this deep, integral call to justice. I saw this like throughout the Quran, throughout Hadith, like how Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, his last sermon he ever said, one of his like most like, you know, this is his last statements he has on earth. And what did he do? He called and he reminded us to not be racist. Now I have seen and witnessed some of the most terrible racism in mosques and in Islam, but the fundamental heart of Islam and what we should all be striving towards and is to get rid of that. And so that call to justice that I saw echoed throughout the Quran and through Hadith and stuff like that was such a fundamental part of what drew me to Islam and a fundamental part of what caused me to continue to research Islam. And hijab is no different than that too. For me, hijab is not just a statement of the faith that I've chosen. It's not just a statement of the fact that I have willingly submitted to Allah and submitted to the fact that I want my life to look and be separate and different than the way that the rest of the world is living. You know what I mean? And by no stretch of the imagination does that mean I'm doing it perfectly or well or good. One of my favorite quotes is by Andrea Gibson, and she said, I'm wrong. She's a writer, and she said, I'm wrong more often than I'm writing. Like we're drawn we're drawn to error, you know. We're human. It's some of our best stuff out there. But anyways, so yeah. So the oppression of Muslim women was a thing that I heard a lot. And the ambition of Muslim women was another thing that I heard called into question all of the time, where it was like, some people went so far as to tell me that they didn't think a lot of Muslim women were allowed to know how to read. And partly that comes from, you know, ignorance being espouted by violent groups that don't want women to have access to education or things like that, which to me again is the antithesis. If you look at Hadith, if you look at the Quran, it's the antithesis of what Islamic faith and Islamic tradition is. So this idea that Muslim women weren't very ambitious. So that was like one thing that I used to think and that I hear echoed a lot. And again, I think you look at any Islamic text and you see powerful women and you can have an automatic rebuttal to that. But at the same time, one thing that I have kind of grown into in my faith in Islam is I used to, I think, really only value women who were very like academically motivated or ambitious in a job, a professional type of sense. And I realized too that like Khadijah, what an incredible mother she was. She wasn't, and it's, the thing is like she wasn't just a business person, and it's not just that title that made her powerful. It was the support that she gave Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. And so as I've grown in my understanding of Islam, I've realized that these things that I used to think as secondary roles or not valuable things, how fundamental they are. And it goes back to that thing I was talking about how every right has a responsibility with it and every responsibility has a gift. And I'm a mom right now, and I can say hands down beyond a shadow of a doubt, if it was ever called into, like, if I had to ever choose between like nurturing and being able to be like a mother to my son versus having some shiny glitzy career, it would be the easiest choice ever. The answer would always be my son, right? And I think part of that is because of this overwhelming love parents and a lot of mothers and we have for our children, right? It would be an easy transition because of that. But moreover, more so than anything too, I think that one thing that Islam gave me as well is a knowledge that this world is not just for us, right? We're taught in Islam that what we're striving for is the hereafter, you know? And so if this life was my only playing field, if it was my one chance and the only playground I had, I think that choice might, even then, I guess I would still want to like spend the day coloring with my son. I mean, yeah, but I can absolutely understand and see why, if this life was our only thing, why making it big in this life is so important, you know? But inshallah, this isn't our only playground, right? And this is such a small field compared to the one to come. And also like the gift of being a mother that and the responsibility that comes with being a mother, and the rights that come with being a mother too. Like, those are things that we can't quantify, right? Maybe necessarily put them on a resume. Um, but again, similarly to hijab and like the other struggles that come with it, it has enriched my life and given me such a different level of empathy, such a different desire for action in regards to justice, so many other things that are just so beautiful and so powerful. And so when it comes to the ambition of Muslim women, I know we all know Muslim women who are out there getting their PhDs, who have these incredible careers, who are like that headliners of activist movements and stuff like that. And also, I think like we also know amazing, amazing Muslim women who have set those careers aside to color on the floor with their children. And we all have the past that Allah has given us for the reasons that He's given for us, and both of those, I guess, with the deepening and my understanding in this Islamic faith, is that those things are not only are they not contradictory to each other, can you want both of them, but also they're both wildly valuable and wildly important. So yes, Muslim women are ambitious, and yes, but also at the same time, just being a mom in and of itself is enough of a gift and a right and a responsibility, I think, to call your life a full life. And on the other hand too, the other's true also as well for that. Another I guess both of these tie back into each other, but Muslim women having no agency. And you hear things about arranged marriages and this and this and this, and on one hand, right, even in an arranged marriage, a woman has rights, and she has to consent to the marriage and whatever. But even in that sense too, so Islam has always given like an agency and a voice to women. And one thing, when I was first learning about like the feminist movement and women looking for the right to divorce, that was not a right that was given to them by the Christian church. They had to fight and advocate for that. But from the very onset of Islam, divorce was a right, and that's huge. That's huge, because the ability to step outside and leave that in Islam way predated like the feminist movement and in the US or in the West, like far predated that. And it's interesting when they say, Islam is so oppressive to women, and I'm like, yeah, but there are some things we kind of like, we started doing this way before you guys did. Or even like another thing like the right to own property, or one thing that I thought was super interesting too. Actually, we'll see that for another time. But anyway, so that was another misconception that I hear a lot about Muslim women. And then there was something else I wanted to talk about. I guess we already kind of touched on this too. Sorry, excuse me. But one thing that always just is so interesting to me is to hear all the discussions on how Islamic dress, hijab, and whatever are oppressive or signs of oppression, when it's like, if I have chosen to wear this, which, right, it all boils back down to the choice. If I wasn't given a choice, then that would be an entirely different situation, and then that argument would be valid. Unfortunately, that argument would be valid. But I very much so have chosen this. I very much so struggle with this. I very much so still have arguments and disagreements with people in my family. When my mom recently graduated, one of the things she asked for me to do was just to not wear hijab in her graduation photos, and those things are so heavy and so heartbreaking sometimes, right? But I have I have loved hijab, and I have chosen hijab wholeheartedly, wholeheartedly. But the idea that wearing less makes you less oppressed versus wearing more makes you more oppressed. At the end of the day, it's just fabric length. Both of those things assign the meaning we give to them, and in both situations you could argue either things. For me personally, I am thankful for hijab for a number of reasons, but I could never be thankful for any hijab and any of those reasons that did not, if choice and agency did not exist behind them too. And yes, but fabric lengths say nothing about what's going on in a woman's mind, what's going on in her heart, what's going on in her soul, what's going on in her deen. Nothing. It's just fabric links, my guys. Like, you're gonna have to dig deeper to understand that. And yeah, so, and there's a whole lot of other probably misconceptions about Muslim women, and I'm just like picking the really easy ones to talk about. But I guess in closing, I have not only learned about like the force of nature that Muslim women are, but also how soft that strength can be as well. And I grew up in China, and one thing that they would used to say was that one of the reasons why women held less value than men was because they slipped through your hands. And I think the way my IE explained it to me, which is like an auntie, was that it was like water. We were like water, and we slipped through the fingers of like one family into the next family. And so basically, any investment you made in your daughter, you were just making into the next family. But one thing my IE told me was like, yeah, they might say that we're water, but look how much better water is at avoiding obstacles, or how we can switch and turn around, or how many beautiful things that come with this too. And I think one of the fundamental things that in Islam, Muslim men and Muslim women are created very differently. We have different roles, different rights, different responsibilities, and different gifts that come with each one of those things. But that it's like similar to like, you know, how when we have like the call to prayer or whatever, the person who is doing the call to prayer, the one who's leading the prayer, is not better than the person who is behind them. There's really no difference, right? It's just different roles and different rights and different responsibilities. And in that case, that's just the person who's doing the prayer right then. I feel like it's very similar when it comes to the rights of or the roles of men and women in Islam. And there was another point that I was gonna make. Yeah, but I remember. And in closing, like, so yes, I've learned that Muslim women are powerful and how wrong a lot of my original assumptions were, but I've also learned that we don't have to necessarily just be like, our strength is not like a brute force of strength. It can be a soft strength, and not soft like easily broken, but soft like we can move around obstacles, we can be gentle. And I think too, one of the things I've realized the older I get is how a lot of the things that we had traditionally assigned to strength is just brute force, you know. And brute force and violence, nobody who is coming from a position of a lot of confidence, in my opinion at least, ever has to use a lot of brute force and violence. It's softness that takes courage, it's grace that takes courage, it's mercy that takes courage, it's forgiveness that takes confidence, all of those other things. So yeah,